think we start recording. First item on your agenda is apologies, of which we have none. Then any declarations of pecuniary or non-pecuniary interests?
Well, I suppose the only pecuniary interest is us being councillors and earning an allowance. And then, of course, if even if we vote, we potentially lose our seats because there's going to be a reduction in the number of seats of councillors available in the combined authority or whatever else. Or no, it's not. It's a unitary authority. So I know. So we probably do we declare that? I don't know.
I think you declare your membership as of another council, but you do have an exclusion or permission within the Act itself when you're sitting on a Dispensations committee to participate and vote in the decision, even though you have a disclosable pecuniary interest.
Thank you for the clarification. Do we work on this hand up thing on your menu, bottom of your page? Raise your hand like that if we want to talk to you.
Yes, please. Thank you. Councillor Gifford?
Yes, I've got an interest in that. I'm a district councillor at Warwick District Council, as is my dear wife.
Councillor Riley?
Thank you, Jane. Yes, I've got an interest in that. I'm a district councillor at North Warwickshire Borough Council.
Councillor Dervix?
So do I.
Okay, thank you.
So you're all professional politicians.
So the third item on your agenda is election of chair. Do I have any nomination?
I'd like to nominate Neil Dervix, please, Chair. Please, Jane.
Is that seconded?
Yes,
thank you, Councillor Gifford.
I wish somebody else would take that on.
Any other nominations? So no. Okay, so Councillor Dervix, I think you're unanimously elected as chair for the meeting. So I'll hand over to you now.
I don't know what I'm doing here, to be honest. We only have one thing on the agenda, don't we? So how do we go about this?
Would you like me to take you through the report, Chair?
I've not chaired a meeting like this before. If you could take us through the report, yes, please.
Okay. The first part of the report, section 1, takes you through the background and basically flags that the central government is shortly to be publishing a white paper on devolution and local government reform. This will obviously occasion a lot of debate, both at district borough council level and a county council level. And where that might involve unitary structures, there are likely to be conflicting views. In terms of the county council membership, we currently have 54 elected members sitting, of which, in fact, 28 county councillors are also district borough councillors. There's a slight error in the report. And 7 county councillors also have a spouse or partner who's a district borough council. So that would mean, in essence, 30 councillors who potentially would have a disclosable pecuniary interest in any matter relating to local government reform that came before a meeting for consideration. Under our current code of conduct and the current dispensations, members with a disclosable pecuniary interest, where it would have an impact on a district or borough council, whether they're in receipt of an allowance, generally are able to speak at a meeting, but then must withdraw and not participate any further, where there would be a potential financial impact as a result of the matter under discussion, on the district or borough council. Given the importance of the topic of local government reform and what should be happening in Warwickshire in the future in terms of the arrangements for local government, it's felt that excluding such a large number of members and their collective skills, knowledge and experience would seriously damage the quality of the decision making of the county council's member bodies, and also damage the representation of communities across Warwickshire. In addition, the political balance of the council and its committees would be seriously disturbed if effectively 30 members of the councils will be precluded from voting. So this report is basically seeking a wider dispensation to enable twin-hatted members to participate in any future meeting where proposals relating to the White Paper devolution and local government reform are discussed. The individual members currently impacted are set out in the appendix to the report. The report's only dealing with a request for wider dispensation for twin-hatted members who are precluded because they're in a receipt of a member allowance or their spouse or partner is in receipt of a member allowance. Any member who has a disclosable pecuniary interest for any other reason would have to make a personal application for a dispensation, setting out the detail of that. Section 2 of the report goes through this subcommittee's powers to grant dispensations, and the grounds are set out in 2.2. You can grant a dispensation on any one or more of those grounds. They're all separate if you like, and you can combine any number of them. In section 3 of the report, it goes through some of the factors that you may wish to take into account, and in particular the different roles that county councillors have in terms of representing the people of Warwickshire, providing community leadership, encouraging community participation, and in addition to your role as the ultimate policy makers and your participation in the governance and management of the council itself. Those are the background reasons for the request that the subcommittee is considering today. I'm obviously happy to answer any questions that members may have.
Right, I think Bill Gifford was first, followed by John Horner, and then I put my hand up next. So, Bill, would you like to?
Yes. I mean,
if you have any questions?
The dispensation subcommittee has met in the past, and it's nearly 5 years ago. It granted dispensation to everybody, all members of the council, for the following 4 years on all business on the council, on the basis that any who were members of another authority would be granted the dispensation. So we're not doing anything particularly revolutionary here if we were to grant dispensation. If we did, I would actually go for all 5 of the reasons in 2.2 for simplicity's sake, and they actually make sense. So to me, it's the obvious thing to do, but I do have an interest, obviously. But it would, to have more than half the council unable to participate would make a nonsense and wouldn't be in the public interest. So for that alone, which is 2.2c, I would argue that we should grant dispensation. But I have to say, if you look at A, B, C, D, E. They're all perfectly valid, and I would suggest that we grant dispensation on all 5 grounds.
Could I just make one comment? I don't think D is particularly applicable because it requires each member of the cabinet to be excluded, and only a proportion of the cabinet members are actually excluded. So if you were looking at applicable grounds, it would be A, B, C, and E.
E, fine. Okay, sorry, yes.
Q.
Okay.
Oh, sorry, yes. Yeah. So I hadn't properly read D.
Have you finished, Bill?
I've finished, yes.
Okay.
We granted A, B, C.
It was John next then, please.
Yeah.
Good, thanks very much. Just for clarity, before I ask my question, are we entering a discussion now, or are we simply having questions?
It's up to the committee.
Well, I mean, yes.
Really I think we can take them both together and then come back later, if on a second round, if people want to elaborate.
Okay.
Sorry.
Phone's ringing. Yes.
It's mine. Somebody.
Chairman, really? Right. First of all, you were saying that it would be detrimental to the debate, etc. And it just occurred to me, is that a subject or an objective view, i.e. in the sense that how is that arrived at, and whose view is it really that it would be detrimental if these twin hatters were not permitted to vote, because they're allowed to talk, but they're not allowed to vote under current rules. And I just wondered whose opinion it was that the quality of the decision making would be affected. If the debate's good, people vote on the quality of the debate and the arguments put forward. They don't vote on party lines or on predetermination.
Well, ultimately, it's for the Dispensations subcommittee to decide whether or not, given the facts, whether it would be likely that the debate would be detrimentally affected by the exclusion of so many county councillors from fully participating, including hearing from other people in terms of the debate.
Yeah, but the only thing that we're discussing is whether they vote or not, isn't it?
They have a right to speak, but then must leave the room.
Yeah. Oh, I see. So they can't actually listen to other people and then respond. Yeah. But do they? Okay. Right. That was my question. The other question is, of course, that twin hatters, there are 2 types of twin hatter. There are the ordinary members, who are simply backbenchers, either in both cabinet, both county and district. And you have the cabinet members, and of course each have different levels of interest. So, for example, somebody who's a cabinet member in the county and a cabinet member at district will, of course, have quite a lot of money on the table. Must be 30. What is it? I don't know what the current rates are. What is it? Is it about 30 grand each? 30 grand in total, compared to the 7 plus 6, isn't it? If you're a backbencher. So we're looking at quite 2 different levels of remuneration that are likely to go. So that was the other thought I was having, but I haven't those are my questions.
I can only answer to the remuneration for the county councillor.
Yeah, I was wondering if any of the other members who are district councillors knew. Councillor Gifford, do you know what the Warwick cabinet members get?
I'm not a Warwick cabinet member.
No, you're not, but I mean, do you know what they get?
I mean, it's something in the region of about £4,000 on top of the. So they get about they would end up with a total of about 9,000 or so, I think.
Yeah, certainly it's a bit more, I think, at Stratford.
Yeah.
Well, in fact, a lot more. But
Chair, just to add to that debate, I think it's about 1,500 in North Warwickshire.
Is it?
So John's point is an interesting one, Chair, in that it shows a complete variance in terms of allowances across the district for what are similar roles.
Yeah. No.
If you finished your points, John.
Dave, yeah, no questions.
I
haven't entered the debate yet.
Right, Dave, you were next, I think.
Thank you, Chair. I speak in support of granting dispensation to take part in the debate and also to vote. I think that in this case, the Twin Hatters have a hugely valuable contribution to make, because one would hope that all of the Twin Hatters fully understand the value and indeed some of the problems with the district and the county structure, and perhaps some of the advantages and the disadvantages of moving to a unitary structure. So I agree with the points that Jane and Bill have raised, and would recommend that this council considers voting in support of not only Twin Hatters taking part in the debate, but also Twin Hatters being able to exercise a vote. I do think, Chair, that the question about political makeup is a very important one when you look at the balance of the council and you look at the disproportionate impact that not allowing members from the Liberal Democrat and the Labour Party would have if we didn't allow them to engage effectively.
Thank you. Bill?
Yes, I mean, it is a case that not being able to vote, not being able to, but only being able to speak and having to leave the room does have an enormous effect on the debate. And actually, it would have it would mean, in fact, it's the Labour, I think, are the ones who've got least Twin Hatters, but certainly it would damage the political mix, but even more, it would damage the geographical mix, because there are only 3 Twin Hatters from Warwick District, but North Warwickshire is very strongly represented with Twin Hatters. So it would almost mean that North Warwickshire would have virtually no representation, which would be, I think, desperately unfair on the inhabitants of North Warwickshire. And it would have a disproportionately beneficial effect on Warwick District, which already has the most district county councillors anyway. And if it then, because it's got the smallest number affected, it would, I think it not to grant dispensation. I do love John Horner, because he's like the pearl and he's like the
grit in the oyster, sure.
Yes. the bit of grit in the oyster that becomes a pearl. So, but I have to say, I thought the meeting would be over by 10 because it was so. But those are good points made. But I do feel strongly that we should grant dispensation on those 3 points. Thank you.
Thank you. I think it's important to have somebody like John in the meeting to ask the gritty questions, because it does lead to much better debate when you do that.
I'm pleased to be on so many committees with him.
Yeah, I mean, I can not being a twin, I can see the problem. I mean, a problem for me would be that the Twin Hatters, do they then vote at both places, or do they choose one? You can't be sort of doing both, and that I would have difficulty with. And other than that, I think it's such a big issue, such an important issue, that everybody should be involved in the discussions and all that. But if I was a dual hatter, I would have an issue do I vote against one or the other, or you can't be actually doing both. I wouldn't be able to do that if I was there. So that's the issue for me.
Yeah, that's an interesting, actually, Chair, through the Chair, that's an interesting point, isn't it? That actually Twin Hatters get 2 bites of the cherry in influencing the thing. So they're skewing the, so almost we should say you have a choice. You can vote once. It's a bit like voting if you're on 3 electoral rolls. You're only legally entitled to vote in one place. And I wonder whether that might be the solution. Just a thought. I mean, it's a very valid point. The other thing I was thinking. Sorry, yeah, go on.
I've got Dave Riley and Bill Gifford that raised their hands before you, but also got Jane. So if we could take your point and then go to Jane next.
Yeah, can I just finish? The final thing I was thinking about is that actually we're not voting for the county council in this debate, nor are we voting for the district councils. We're voting for what is best for the citizens of, or the residents, I should say, because they are actually subjects of Warwickshire. And that really is the lowest cost option, frankly, or the lowest cost versus highest quality delivery. So the best value decision, if you like. And so in that sense, you could argue that that dispensation should be granted. But I hadn't thought about Councillor Birdie's point. I think that's an incredibly valid one.
Yeah.
Okay, Jane.
Chair, perhaps I could help. If members recall, there's the issue of predetermination. Mm-hmm. So we're at the very early stages of debating these issues at the moment, and there may come a point in time where a member has to take a firm view one way or the other if they're dual-hatted at district, borough council or county council level in terms of what view they support, which may, on the basis of predetermination, affect their ability to vote elsewhere at a later stage.
Yeah, but sorry, Chair, I'll put my hand up.
Okay, I think Dave was next.
Thank you, Chair. And I totally support this Parminder's view about predetermination here, because I haven't seen the agenda for the 22nd of September, but one assumes that we will be asked as county councillors to vote on a proposal. So I do think that it's an issue that we need to seek advice on and advise all councillors that should they determine how to vote or take part in a vote, depending on what that vote might be on the 22nd, they could be in a position where they predetermine their vote back on district. Because I think it's a really interesting issue, isn't it? If you vote one way, if there was a vote on the 22nd, you can't go back to your district and then vote a different way.
Thanks, Dave. I'll keep my views till the end of it. So, Bill, you were next.
Yes, I mean, clearly you would. I can think of a case where, on Warwick District, where a councillor who was also a town councillor at another town, not Leamington, voted one way on the local plan at the district level and against it as a town councillor. But that's not a wise thing to do, I would suggest. But of course, she may have been persuaded by the strength of the arguments that the town council may have persuaded her to change her mind. So she clearly wasn't predetermined. But yeah, I have been thinking about this because I am a dual hatter, and it's another possibility at the district that's coming forward for the district and Warwick District and Stratford. And I think one couldn't, although it's not exactly the same, it's not identical issue, but it would, I would feel I suspect I'd be predetermined and therefore wouldn't participate at the district level. But we'd need to see the exact what the report is at the district level before deciding whether I was predetermined or not. Because it wouldn't necessarily be identical. It's not going to be a case at the district level of voting against a county, a unitary authority as such, but it would be possibly voting in favour of some sort of. But my inclination, and I've already expressed this to my group leader at district level, it would be to not participate at the district. But it's easier for me because Warwick district have only got the three of us. Whereas in North Warwickshire, I can see there could be quite an issue. It could be quite difficult. But it really depends on what comes forward at each, because there will be differences in. I suspect you're not going to have a thing kind of North Warwickshire, which will be straightforward, exactly the same proposal to vote on.
Okay, thanks, Bill. I've got Jane and then John, if that's okay.
Just to clarify, Chair, there's a difference between having a predisposition, even if it's a strong predisposition, if you maintain an open mind and are still willing to listen to the evidence, and having a closed mind and effectively being predetermined. And as I indicated at this stage of the game, and even with the council report, we're at fairly early stages of considering proposals for further discussion with central government and not necessarily making any particular final decision in terms of ultimately what model should be adopted for Warwickshire. So as debates and the process goes on, members may reach a stage where they are effectively predetermined because they've decided once and for all that that's the line they want to support, but it's unlikely that you will have reached it at this stage. And Councillor Riley, we will be sending advice out to members on the issue of predisposition and predetermination.
Thanks, Jane. Those were my thoughts, exactly. But John, you're next.
Good, thanks. I was thinking that if you're a company director, you can sit on boards of a fair number of companies. But whenever you're sitting on the board of a company, your role is to ensure the best interests of that company. So, you could, and I know that there used to be, the Liberals, certainly when I was a district councillor, used to argue quite strongly, why does Stratford fall out with County? Because you're both run by Tories. And of course, the answer was in Warwickshire, you're doing the best you can for the residents of Warwickshire. And when you're a Stratford councillor, you're doing the best you can for the residents of Stratford district. And I guess it's the same for Warwick and North Warwickshire and so on. So you could have a situation where somebody does actually vote differently because they interpret their role as being the best interests of Stratford or of North Warwickshire versus the best interests of the Warwickshire residents as a whole. And I mean, take an example. If you look at the deprivation stats, which is a non-contentious issue, of Warwickshire, you'll see that there are certain areas where deprivation on average, or certain districts, is much higher than other areas. We're all significantly higher than Birmingham, better off than Birmingham, but there are the odd patch in Warwickshire which isn't quite as affluent as the rest. It therefore is if as a Warwickshire County Councillor I voted, I would vote for the best interests of the Warwickshire residents, which probably would be for a unitary. If, on the other hand, I happened to be a member for Stratford District, the last thing I'd want to do is to offer any subsidy to people in Nuneaton, Bedworth and North Warwickshire and so on. So I'd probably then think, actually, in the interest of Stratford District residents, I should vote for Stratford UDI. So you see the problem. So I think what we have to recognise, and probably could we sort of say through the chair, could we say this to the powers that be, that in the debate we are debating the best interests of the people of Warwickshire. Because if we're voting for the best interests of the county council, then that's for the county council to continue. Because by definition, if you go for a unitary, you kill the county council. Therefore, we should be voting in favour of maintaining the status quo. So we need to think very clearly that we want to vote in the best interest of the people of Warwickshire, in which case it doesn't actually matter that we got twin hatters or anything in the room if they're all voting for the best interests of Warwickshire when they're in there. And I think we've just got to accept that somebody could voting for the best interests of Warwickshire, I'll say, well, I think it's rather nice to people in Nuneaton and Bedworth that Stratford subsidises them. So I'm sure your arguments are that they wouldn't and all that sort of stuff. But basically, whereas if you're in Stratford, then bingo, you say go the other way. So that's just my feeling, is that probably having initially started thinking, no, we shouldn't give any dispensations at all. I'm rather thinking that if we can make it very plain that we're talking about the residents of Warwickshire and nothing else, then actually we can dispense everybody for everything.
Right, I'm going to come in here because I'm the only one with my hand raised. That is one interpretation of it, but who actually voted you into your seat? It was the people of your division, your area.
No, that's right.
And you're there to represent them, not Warwickshire, not the district. You're in there to represent them. And therefore, you can represent them and what is best for them in both forum, voting, discussing and joining in the vote in both areas.
Is it? Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that something that is important and as wide-reaching, far-reaching as this, it is important that all of us get the opportunity to make our feelings known, our ideas known, and to represent the people that voted us in properly in both areas. And I really do think that this dispensation should be granted for people. Anyway, John, you put your hand back up.
Yeah, I was just thinking, sorry, Perminda might have beaten me to it, but anyway, I was just thinking that we were voted in to represent them on the county council, which is different from actually representing. It's representative democracy, which is the whole argument at the root of the Brexit debate in Parliament. So it's a funny one, but either way, we've come to the same conclusion.
But if you're a twin hatter, you have been voted to represent those people in both places.
Yeah, but represent on behalf of. See what I mean? It's a semantic nuance, which maybe could spend
we differ on
hours debating.
Okay, I've got Parminder next, then, and then Bill.
Yeah, so the question I asked probably been answered, and I think on those bases I'm happy to support the dispensation. I think we got the safety net of predetermination of those people that are actually totally closed mind and do have one view. They will have a difficulty in voting somewhere else. So I'm there is that safety net. So I think I'm reasonably happy with that.
Okay, thank you, Bill. You had your hand up next.
Yes, I think this has been. I hope the debate at full council will be as interesting as the debate at dispensations subcommittee. But I think we've now got to the stage where, if I can I make a proposal that we grant the dispensation on the grounds of 2.2 A, B, C and E.
Okay, you've made a proposal.
I've made a proposal.
Dave's got his hand up. If I take him first, and then we need somebody to second, if we are happy with that. Dave.
Thank you, Chair. I was going to second that, but just with the addition, obviously, that legal team at County Council offer that advice in terms of predetermination or predisposition when they update all councillors on the decision of this committee.
Okay, thank you. Is that acceptable, Jane?
It is, yeah.
Yeah, would go along with that. Yeah.
Before we move on to accepting or rejecting that, I've got a question about who it applies to, because this is about pecuniary interest and so on. But there are members of the council whose partners are members of parish councils in one form or another, who don't get remunerated, but who, if this goes through, will be handed as a council a lot more resources and a lot more responsibilities and power. And I really wonder whether the dispensation should be should include those members as well. Is that an appropriate amendment, Jane? It's a technical question rather than anything else.
Members of town and parish councils who are also county councillors, who don't have a pecuniary interest as a disclosable pecuniary interest, because they're not remunerated, they don't receive an allowance. So there's no need for them to have a dispensation in order to participate and vote on the matter, because the disclosable pecuniary interest regime only kicks in because of the allowances given to members of principal councils, i.e. district borough councils and county councils.
Thank you. I just wanted to make sure that we weren't missing something with that. So, okay, you've put your hand back up.
Oh, sorry, I was trying to put it down.
Okay, thanks. In that case, has anybody got anything further they want to say before we vote on Bill's motion? Okay. Would everybody like to? Shall I ask people, John?
Just a quick one. Yeah, we've got the amendment that Dave suggested, have we?
Yeah.
You know, the comment about legal advice, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, good.
I thought that had been accepted.
Yeah, that's right. Okay.
Okay.
But we've got to do the whole thing.
Right.
See.
Yeah. So if we start with you then, John, would you like to? You're putting your hand up to say yes.
Yes.
Okay. Parminder. Bill.
Hands up, yes.
Yes.
Dave.
Yes, Chair, in support.
So I think that is unanimous then, that we grant the dispensation in accordance with Bill Gifford's amended motion from Dave Riley.
Thank you very much.
Right.
I don't think you've got any other items of business. There are no other items of business on the agenda.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, everybody. I'll close the meeting at whatever time it is, 22.